Hello and welcome to Daily Politics, reaching you from Trust TV studios here in Abuja. I am Suleiman. On Daily Politics today, the Anambra Elections. It is barely 48 hours to the Anambra Governorship election. This election is almost like none ever in Nigeria. It's an election in just one state, but more than 200 million eyes are on it. All Nigerians are focused on it. It seems to be an election that is more than just electing a governor. It's an election that is about the contest of Nigerian sovereignty, the contest between the federal government and a non-state actor, IPOB, which has threatened to derail the election. And in response to that, the federal government has deployed all manner of security personnel into the state. What is going to happen to that election? Are we going to have a peaceful and fair election on Saturday in Anambra State? Or will the election be derailed by a voter apathy or by too many security around? We don't know. But we want to look at all these issues. And with me are two highly intelligent individuals who are mainly from the civil society tonight. The first, of course, is Professor Jideofor Adibe, Professor of Political Science, Nasarawa State University, Kefi, but also publisher Adoni and Abe Publishing Limited. And on my right is a man who also doesn't need too much introduction, Mr. Jide Ojo, who is a public affairs commentator and an activist and a columnist for the Daily Punch. Welcome, gentlemen.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
And interestingly, you are hosting two Jides.
Okay, yes.
One is a Jide,
the other is Jideofor. Yeah. One has a little inflection, and the other has. It's okay.
It's okay.
But before we go into the discussions proper, let us take a minute to bring you politics in the news today. Stay with us.
Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, has said that the Ninth Assembly was committed to bequeathing a better electoral act that will be acceptable to the majority of Nigerians. He gave the assurance in Abuja when he hosted a team of European Union delegation in Nigeria. The Speaker expressed satisfaction that the Electoral Act Amendment Bill will be passed early enough by the National Assembly and will be transmitted to the President soon. Gbajabiamila said, though no country had a perfect electoral system, the National Assembly was making effort to make Nigeria electoral law to be in tune with the country's peculiarities. Borno State Governor Babagana Zulum has reopened the Bama-Banki Road, which connects Nigeria to some other African countries. The 65-kilometer road, which connects Nigeria to countries such as Cameroon and Sudan, is said to have been closed for 9 years due to Boko Haram operations in the area. Speaking at the official reopening of the road at Banki Junction in Bama local government area of the state, the governor warned immigration personnel and other security operatives against extorting road users. Zulum also ask a security operative to arrest persons found diverting from the main road towards the bush with smuggled goods, adding that such perpetrators would be treated as insurgents if arrested. He also asked the theatre commander of Operation Hadenkai and troops of 151 and 152 Battalion to support in efforts to ensure safety of travelers plying the route. The Nigerian Governors Forum and Conference of Speakers of State Legislatures of Nigeria have resolved to work in synergy to ensure the full implementation of financial autonomy to states' legislature and judiciary by all states. The two bodies also assured members and staff of states' legislature and judiciary, as well as all Nigerians, that it will not relent until all the terms agreed on in the Memorandum of Action on the implementation of the financial autonomy for the two arms were fully met. Chairman of the Conference of Speakers of State Legislatures of Nigeria, who is also the Speaker of Bauchi State House of Assembly, Abubakar Suleiman, made the disclosure shortly after a crucial meeting with the chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum and Governor of Ekiti State, Fayemi Kayode, at the Nigerian Governors Forum Secretariat, Abuja. In his response, the chairman of the Nigeria's Governors Forum and Governor of Ekiti State, Kayode Fayemi, reaffirmed the support commitment of all governors on the full implementation of the financial autonomy to states' legislatures.
Thank you. Once again, welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Prof, let me start with you.
Okay.
At least because of the cultural proximity.
Yeah.
So, has there ever been an election in Nigeria which has focused the attention of the country as much as this one? An off-season statewide election rather than a national election?
I'm not sure. There was a lot of attention on the Osun election at a point. I think the attention on Anambra is largely because of IPOP and the challenges of insecurity in the Southeast in general.
Okay.
I think that's what makes it stand out. And of course, it's an off-season election.
So why does that make it stand out?
It's standing out because IPOP has said there will not be election. They retracted, from what I read, while we know some groups are still trying to enforce it. And the state itself has to enforce the fact that it's still a sovereign state. It cannot be dictated by non-state actors. So it's important for the state to show, that Anambra State is not an ungoverned space, that it's still one of the areas where it has control. So we're going to see how it is. The question is it going to hold? I'm actually happy that INEC, or rather it's expected INEC said it will hold, and the government supported it. For the same reason that the election held even in Borno at the heat of the Boko Haram insurrection. If the government said, well, because of the crisis, because of the all the killings going on, we will not hold the election, it means accepting the fact that you have ceded that territory to Boko Haram and other non-state actors, and therefore it's an ungoverned space.
Mr. Jide, does the federal government face any threat in Anambra State that is different from the threats that it faces elsewhere in the country?
I'm not sure that would be a good characterization of what we have on ground. Okay. It's not the first time Nigerian states will be facing threat of secession. Okay. Even in the same Southeast, we have had previously threat of secession. Yeah. And don't forget, after the nullification or annulment of June 12 election, June 12, 1993 election, similar agitation
happened in the Southwest.
Happened in Southwest. Okay. So, and this is not even a region-wide challenge. This is a statewide challenge for now, looking in the context of Anambra. But if you look at region, yes, you say 5 states, and 5 is significant, even though 31 others are not in that region. But be that as it may, I think it's a general reflection of where we have come to, the sorry pass we have come to in our national life as a Nigerian. There used to be a time nobody believes there will be a suicide bomber in Nigeria because we used to be the happiest people on earth. So how can happy people on earth, the happiest people on earth,
themselves.
now blow themselves up?
And Nigerians love life.
And you never would believe that there will be mass abduction of students in school repeatedly over the way it has happened since 2019.
So what are the causes of these things?
Well, the cost is, there are a number of variables. Poverty, unemployment, lack of equity, justice, and fairness, and also the weakness of this Nigerian state to enforce its own rules. What I can throw out there. But it happened in different degrees across different regions. Take for instance, the banditry that is going on in the Northwest and North Central. Would the characterization have not been different if it's not a northerner and somebody from that geopolitical zone that is the president?
Okay.
Assuming without considering that it's a Southeasterner or a Yoruba man that is the president, and that level of killing banditry is going on in the Northwest. They say, oh, what do you expect? It's not from there. He who wears the shoes knows where it pinches. That's what people will say. But now, it is he who is wearing the shoe who should know where it pinches. But because of the prolonged, protracted culture of poverty, unemployment, and lack of infrastructure, and the fact that there is a lot of ungoverned spaces, in Nigeria, we are now having to contend with non-state actors who are now determining. Imagine bandits going from house to house to collect access fee from families.
And taxes.
Taxes, and even access fee to people's farms, and harvest fee when it's time for them to reap, to harvest their crops. And so when you look at that, you know the context in which the agitation in Southeast is taking place. Now, there is a different characterization.
Prof, do IPOB or any other non-state actors, which he mentioned, which also you also referred to earlier, do they have any capacity to actually derail elections in Anambra State?
Well, we have seen the fact that we don't know about the enforcers, the unknown gunmen, and some people also call them ungunned men. We don't know who they are, and we've seen what we know that are enforcers. And what is also not very clear is whether the command and control structure of the IPOB is intact. And as we discussed earlier, you see that non-state actors of this, organizations of this nature, they are prone to factionalization.
Yes.
And when they factionalize, we saw it with Boko Haram and the Islamic State, West Africa province, and the rest of them. When they factionalize, it becomes very difficult to say. Even when you say go and negotiate, you don't know which faction you are going to negotiate with.
Because there are many of them now.
Because there are many of them. And I agree with what my friend said about poverty and all this, but I don't think also that is an exclusive, it's a very comprehensive explanation of the phenomenon.
What is the
there's nothing like, the other aspects to it, one of which is what I call contagion effect.
Contagion effect.
And mimicry. The whole idea of Me Tooism.
Okay.
Now you can see this, when you talk about this banditry in the north, and people are going from house to house collecting protection money or taxes or whatever then they call it. Sooner than later it's going to percolate to other regions because there are people who operate on different sides of the moral divide. Just like you're here, they cooperate, they know what is happening, they keep an eye on what is happening.
Are you saying that we're likely to also have some kind of banditry in other parts of the country
what is now,
for the same thing?
That's probably a version of probably what's playing out in Anambra now and Southeast, in my own opinion. Okay. If you look at how kidnapping started, it started in Niger Delta. It was not for ransom, to make a point.
Yes.
Then he went to Southeast that borrowed it and said, look, we could monetize this thing, and they started the ransom. Then it spread to others, and now now
the capital is in the northwest.
People even thought it will not do something. It's there. In the same way, this banditry, and whether you call them, I think also at the heart of this was that the government was not able to manage the herdsmen crisis properly. And if the government had been conscious of the fact that your own ethnicity matters, and it was not able to take tough decisions as Obasanjo did with this thing.
Mr. Jude, he says that the government has not been able to manage the herdsmen crisis very well. Do you think the government has managed the IPOB crisis very well?
No. To the extent that IPOB is not a faceless organization. Government claims that NSAS protesters are faceless. They don't have leaders, but IPOB has leader, and leadership is known. There is an arrowhead, there is a mastermind who is not unknown. So whether you say unknown gunmen or unknown men, Nnamdi Kanu is known, and he has not hidden his identity. And I feel the statement that IPOB has been able to make in the recent months, particularly with the sit-at-home and the enforcement of that sit-at-home, should send signals to the federal government that these people mean business and they can do and undo. A cripple may not be able to milk a cow, but it can easily spill the milk that you have gotten. So what I think the federal government should have done was to open dialogue with the IPOB. To the best of my
proscribed organization.
Yeah, even where Taliban was Taliban not proscribed, was U.S. government not negotiating?
No, they didn't negotiate.
They did. They went to Doha. They went to Qatar. Donald Trump did.
But even my own self, I think when I talked about mismanagement, if if the government had been sensitive to the fact that people thought it's treating the herdsmen with kid gloves and ought to have come with what we call a tough love, as Obasanjo did before, perhaps things would have been different. But
there are troops in the northwest.
Because they were all over. So groups like Nnamdi Kanu and the Igboho who can come and articulate local grievances that, look, we can protect you. And don't forget that even Nnamdi Kanu was a creation of the government by trying to kill an ant with a sledgehammer. I never heard of him before. So this fear in the South, especially, and made up that the herdsmen were running amok, even though the causes were environmental, we know them. But ethnicity got sucked into it. The government was not very conscious to the role of optics. So
the atmospherics around the issue.
So then these non-state actors became very believable where they are. So when they say, look, I'm going to set up Eastern Security Network, people said, well, since government could not help us, you can. We believe in what you say. But of course, we see the danger of handing over these things to us.
But there is also the argument that it's not that people really identify with what the IPOB and co are preaching, just that they are afraid for their lives. And this has been demonstrated over and over again, that IPOB, they have bombed vehicles, they have killed people whenever they call for sit at home, and people want to disobey this and go about their normal business. So it's not like
you are
people
not talking about when it has
ideas.
gestated. You are not talking about it at a later stage. We are talking about when they came up. You see, you have the Amotekun. So it was also a response, government response to the fact, original response to the fact that non-state actors had been more believed and legitimacy was flowing away from them. So you see non-state actors, they promised this thing, and people were willing even to put.
So let's go back to the elections, because that's the interest. So what can we predict in terms of voter participation, voter turnout? Anambra people, will they welcome this election and troop out and still vote for a new governor? Because whatever happens, they are the ones who are going to be left with the next government in that state. What's your opinion?
I believe the election will hold. I cannot predict what will be the level of turnout of voters. Anambra perpetually, from historical perspective, has always have low voter turnout, because majority of Anambrans are not even living in the states. They are out there. They are in Enugu, they are in Lagos, they are in Abuja. So it's just the affinity of registering to vote. So when times like this come, maybe if this election were to be held close to Christmas, you will see higher turnout of people, because people will go home for Christmas festivity. But this period, people will weigh their chances. Is it worth my while to travel all the distance because I want to vote? So Anambra has not been known to be a state with high voter turnout. And this may worsen with the threat of IPOB. But the presidency has done the needful by mobilizing military and police to secure the environment of the election. So we hope that will be sufficiently believed for people to have confidence to come out on Saturday and vote.
Okay, maybe we can only hope now. But INEC said that it has registered 2.5 million voters in Anambra State, which is significantly reasonably high, given the context that we are dealing with. So what does that mean for what we are likely to expect?
Registered voters is different from turnout.
Okay.
And as Jide mentioned, there are variables now that will constrain people from coming out. I think the federal government did the right thing, as I said. You need to defend your space. You need to show that you are still in control. You need to give people confidence to come out.
But deployment of military, does that show that you are in control? Doesn't that show that you are actually in fear?
No, so what are you going to do?
Okay.
If you don't do it, the threat, because there are enforcers, you have to, it cuts in both ways.
Okay.
Extreme militarization can induce fear, but without them, you have to be afraid of the enforcers. So I think, there's no simple way. I think what the federal government did, in my opinion, there's no alternative to that.
But if I can weigh in, my own fear more is not even about the enforcers and then the military. It's more about the ideological warfare that has been unleashed. Okay. The disinformation, misinformation, fake news, and hate speeches that is being preached across and creating the atmosphere of fear, even where none exist. 2-3 days ago, they said INEC chairman has been killed in Oka.
The INEC state chairman.
But the national chairman.
Yes.
They said has been killed. Meanwhile, the man was at the airport as at the time they were announcing his obituary. And there are so many other rumor mills that will, within the next hours, want to create that fear. So people who cannot shoot, who cannot go and disrupt voting process, they may start a scaremongering on the morning of elections to say 20 people have been killed in Equilobia. Then you say, if they have killed people, me, I'm not venturing out. But do you have an independent way of verifying? You may not, because there will be lockdown. And so this word of mouth, fake news, which will be spread through social media, people can take pictures of previous crises elsewhere and start posting and say, these are the pictures of people that the military just killed in Aguata.
In fact, you led the discussion right where we're going next, because earlier we were viewing a video that was sent in. Purportedly, of course, there is no way of knowing, and we are not association to the Anambra elections in any way, but a video showing people coming out of a building and then collecting money, coming out of a building and collecting money, mostly women come out and then they give you money to show that voters are being induced with money. No one has been able to authenticate this video as coming from anywhere. It could have been 10 years ago. It could have been at any time. So that raised our understanding of what fake news can do, how much damage fake news can do in this election. Can you elaborate further on
I'm
that?
not sure if you see a video like that. I think it's more likely to be true. Or let me just say more likely to. It's become part, there is a voter market, buying and selling. And in the last election, both Anambra and Osun, I remember the story then was that one party was offering, give you money and rice. And when the other party found out that it was losing ground, he started offering you rice and 2 pieces of meat.
That's interesting. In this one, they were offering money and a bottle of soft drink.
So the other party will up the game. They said, I remember that it was still Anambra State. They said the governor was not willing to bring out enough money. But when he saw what the APC and now, like one of the parties was doing, he just decided to up the game by offering 2 pieces of meat. So
in that case, what harm? We're looking at the insecurity situation in the state. We're looking at how to ensure a credible election from the security point of view. Then what will it mean for INEC officials and for the integrity of the results if we also have to deal with issues of vote buying?
I will come to vote buying, but before I forget, let me write on what Prof just said. The issue of vote buying.
Buying and selling.
Buying and selling. It's
you can't buy without having a seller.
It's vote trading. But before I forget, still on issue of misinformation, fake news, hate speech, and disinformation. Did you know that even as INEC was training its ad hoc staff, about 2 weeks ago, there was already news in the media that many of the ad hoc staff have withdrawn their services from going ahead to be part of the election process.
And it wasn't true.
They were just being trained. They have not even been given letter of appointment. At that point, so how do you know who will not come or who have withdrawn when you have not even received letter of appointment? You are still being trained, and INEC will definitely train in excess of what it needs.
Do you think politicians are behind these?
Exactly. The politicians are behind it, because one peculiar thing about Anambra is that it's a state of money bags.
Yeah.
there is an estimated 300 billionaires in Anambra
State.
In Anambra, they are not resident there, but they can spend their last kobo to enthrone or dethrone anybody. So the issue, and that brings us to the issue of vote buying. Now, the answer, the challenge will be, what is party A offering?
Yeah.
So you keep your tab. If they are offering 5,000, and you see that that's the stronghold of opposition, you go and up it 7,000, 10,000 per vote. It depends on whether it's also suburban or rural community. So this vote buying from 2017 is documented historically that Anambra set the pace in vote buying, in vote trading. Yes, in the country, in vote trading. I mean, CDD report, Yaga Africa report, Nigeria Situation Room report. Go and read it. The last governorship election in 2017. You will see what they have to say about vote trading. So, but like I said, it's a convoluted environment where even this issue of misinformation and disinformation, some people are paying for it to be done. It's part of the trading. It's part of the monetization of the process. Because what you do is that where you know the military and police will not allow you to go and scatter vote, all you just need is to sow seed of discord. You can claim that unknown gunmen have just done a wreck and havoc, a bomb has just gone off somewhere, and then if you put that kind of information in the stronghold of your opponent, many of their supporters may not want to come out. Unless you have, and that would be the challenge of INEC, of media like you, and of civil society activists like us, to robustly counter
any disinformation
through fact-checking.
Yes.
To say, we had this, check with INEC, is this true? Check with the military. They all must have a situation room that can respond promptly, rapid response to issues around fake news and disinformation.
But let me just mention quickly that many, like the police and INEC, many of them now have media people focusing on social media. So immediately fake news comes out. They use the same instrument of the social media to counter. So that's beginning to be rewarding. Of course, not everything, like somebody told me yesterday that non-government were on the streets.
Which was not true?
I don't know, but despite the presence of the police.
But you haven't read about it in any credible media?
No, I haven't. I didn't know. Maybe it just said the unknown gunmen were everywhere, so she had to turn back. Maybe true, maybe or not.
Okay, on that note, maybe when we come back, we go into the parties straight, because we have parties and candidates in this election still. So maybe we're looking at what their chances are, what they have done before, particularly the APGA, which is the current party in that state now, but that's when we come back from break. Thank you for staying with us. We'll be going a break for 1 minute. We'll be coming back. And when we come back, we'll continue our discussion on Anambra elections. Stay with us. Welcome back. If you are joining us, this is Daily Politics on Trust TV. Before we went on break, we were discussing the Anambra elections, and with me, Professor Jide for Adibe and Mr. Jide Ojo, both of them from civil society and the university, respectively. Prof, your colleague, should I say, your academic colleague, Professor Charles Soludo, happens to be the governorship candidate for APGA in Anambra State. Do you think he has any chances, given that his own emergence, even within the party, told a story in its own right, how to go through the courts even before he was accepted as a candidate? What chance does he stand?
I'll avoid talking about chances, but just to add to what Jide said, and then I'll say something earlier. It is a state of money. I mean, candidates, a battle of billionaires, we often call it. And to just give you an example, what happened during the one of the candidates who was not invited to the debate, Dr. Godwin Madoka, a court party, he said, they mentioned the candidate of the PDP. He said, who is he? He's unemployed. I brought $500 million, which is true actually, in the state. I built the largest hospital, 17-story building for research. What has he done? He's unemployed. He worked in Transcorp, so what's now he's unemployed. Why does
so if somebody, in his understanding, if someone works in Transcorp,
so just for you to know,
he has no job.
So he said, don't talk about him. He's unemployed. So money is going to play a role. Another thing is Anambra State is always very litigious. That is, the law will play a lot of role. In fact, one of the candidates said that given the fact that some of the primaries were contentious and have what Obasanjo will call KLEC, many of them, that a very important thing in this election is to be part of it first, that anything can happen. So contests. In our Igbo state, somebody who came forth became first. So anything is possible. That's the mentality. So
you think that the election may not, the votes, the actual ballots may not decide the winner. It may be the courts that will decide the winner?
No, let me round up this, sorry. And the other thing, before my friend will take over, the other thing that may count, assuming the winning now, because people are not afraid of court. They will so declare me the winner first. Let's go and sort it out in the courts.
In the courts, yeah.
If you are able to incentivize your supporters to come out, we expect very low turnout for reasons of insecurity, among others. If you are able, whoever is able to incentivize his supporters more
to come out.
Yes, because even if you have 100 people that have voted, INEC will declare a winner. So if you have a way of incentivizing, whatever way, and they vote for you, that will play a role. You may have all.
So in this case, just to harp on a little bit on what he has said, does incentivization means by inducing voters? That's the only way to get turnout. What about campaign? What about policies? What about ideas and ideologies and so on?
Well,
don't they matter in Anambra?
They do, but not as much as incentivizing and then you know what we need to understand about Anambra. Anambra poses a very It's a place you need to study the politics to even get your PhD. It holds an historical, should I say, date for Nigeria. That's the state where a sitting governor was abducted.
Yes.
Successfully.
Yes.
And they abducted and the person who abducted him all know that he did it and nothing has happened to him. That is the state that's the state where off-cycle elections started. It used to be that all elections are held on the same day until Anambra 2003, 2007 election.
Correct.
The litigations from 2003 lingered for 3 years till 2006. We know what happened. He got abducted. He was rescued. And, at the end of the day, the court said you are not the winner. Peter Obi came in.
Some of the people in that abduction are still participating in this election.
Let me not say too much. So now you need to understand the way it ran.
Yes.
So he got abducted, was reinstated. The court chased him out at the appellate court. Peter Obi came in, spent 7 months. INEC said his tenure has lapsed. He was even impeached before the issue of tenure bill lapsed. Then Peter Obi's deputy Vajay Tiaba was made the governor, acting governor. And then you have issue of the court reinstating him, saying that his tenure will only last the day he has spent 4 years in office. All of these are historical facts.
Yes.
In not only this Fourth Republic, but from time we started our electoral democracy. So you need, and if you look at the records, Anambra State always have the highest number of election petitions
in the country.
In the country. Even even for frivolous reasons, for bragging rights.
So, Prof, all of this is interesting. The way he is looking at it, the way Mr. Jide is looking at it, but all of this are about politicians and political institutions or state institutions. What about the role of the individual citizen? What role do they play in making Anambra State a unique state politically?
Well, let me even say about, you mentioned something before, say what of manifesto, what you are assuming that Nigerians across states trust that the politicians, they just believe that you are the same. So
that all politicians are the same.
It doesn't matter. All these promises is what they get from you now. Because once you go there, you don't even remember them. So this very high level of distrust of the government and politicians is a big factor, but maybe manifested. In Anambra State, it's not just after the elections. Sometimes they campaign on the basis of a number of injunctions you have in your pocket. So I don't know. The citizens is, if you go to Anambra, I'm from Anambra.
Okay.
Most of what you call developments will happen at the level of community. It's one of the contradictions in Igbo society, extremely individualistic society, at the same time, extremely communalistic. Communalistic.
No contradiction.
Yeah, communalistic that your town union president, your town union, you will be afraid of your town union.
More than the local government.
Yes, even there, the chief doesn't mean so much. Yeah, I mean, they have their respect. So you see the individuals identify with their town unions, communities. Like if you're a very wealthy man in your community, if you're not been able to set up some people, people will not respect you, even at your level, because they believe God has blessed everybody accordingly. At your level, you must be able to point out, I trained this person, or I helped this man to start a business.
So what about the other parties? Because we have two large parties. In the case of Anambra, we have three. The ABGA, because it's the party in power in that state, so it's a strong party in the state. You have APC, and then you have PDP. But beyond that, you also have Zenith Labour Party, you have the Young People's Progressive Party, and other parties. All of them, about 13 parties, are fielding candidates in the election. These other parties that are not so well known by Nigerians, what chances do they have, and these candidates that they are fielding?
Well, in every election, there are contenders and there are pretenders. You have only mentioned the 5 top contenders, and the victory could go the way of any of them. I am glad you didn't restrict yourself to APC, PDP, and ABGA. No. Zani Labour Party man has been campaigning, robust media campaign since February this year.
So do you see
on a national dark horse can win.
Anything can
a dark horse can win. In 1999,
yes,
Anambra was a PDP state.
Yes.
Imbadeniju failed to perform, and the party refused to give him a second term ticket.
2023, yes.
But he went to AD and got the ticket of Alliance for Democracy to contest in 2003 election.
Yes.
Of course, he lost. And they replaced Mbadiniju with a Chris Ngige, who has done deal with a godfather. Accomplished medical doctor, but doesn't have deep pockets. Somebody brought the billions and said, I will make you a governor. The person didn't hide it. He said, I'm the godfather of all godfathers. All the members of the Senate, House of Reps, State House of Assembly are all my boys, including the governor. And he reneged, and we saw the consequences. Not even President Obasanjo could do, in all his brutality.
If money is going to be the major decider of an election in an
no, it goes beyond money. Now let me come to the issue of other variables. Religion will determine.
Okay.
Religion,
how will religion determine election in Anambra?
They are all Christians, but denomination and closeness to the clerics matter. Many of them have taken their campaigns to churches. They have been endorsed by different religious groups. Now, let me say different religious denominations. So Catholic, Anglican, the Protestants, all of them, they have been shopping for votes among all of them. Then the town unions, very powerful. Then traditional institution, very powerful. These are people you go and pay homage and give kola. You know what kola means. It's not just kola for kola. It's kola and other things. And look, YPP, Ifeanyi Ubah had wanted to be governor.
Yes.
He contested twice or thrice.
Yes.
When he failed to realize the ambition, he left. You know, there was time he contested under Labour Party, contested under PDP, contested under. Then he went to YPP in 2019. Nobody gave him a chance because the dominant party in the
And he
state.
won the Senate.
And he won the Senate. The only seat that's YPP.
Can I say something? That's
Please.
big contradiction. I told you already about the contradiction in Igbo land.
But what this question must be asked.
Issue
As a
of money.
political scientist, you know, what is the implication of the incursion of religion, particularly denominational religious identity, into politics, particularly electoral politics in Anambra State or in the wider Nigerian?
No, there are other things that countervail them. It's not purely only religion. It plays a role. I think people blame Peter before doing that. But let me just talk
How
about
did he
this.
do
Let me
that?
talk about the issue of money. Despite the fact of wealth, there's no Peter B is the only wealthy man that has ever won an election as governor in Anambra State.
Interesting.
Despite the fact of competition for wealth, no man of wealth, and Peter Obi came, people didn't even know he was wealthy. So they seem to operate at the doctrine of the meat. Mbadeji was just a special assistant and a lawyer. The other man that even under Obasanjo Ezefe was a retired civil servant. Then Ngige, a medical doctor. And this man that was brought, a retired banker. So people,
the candidates are
people
not,
don't.
so what is the implication?
When just they seem to believe in this doctrine of the middle, just exactly what operates at the national level. I just wrote it recently. No man of wealth has ever won an election apart from Obiola in Nigeria, and no one that has ever expressly declared interest in the presidency of this country since at least even from time of Shagari ever won. Shagari was angling to be in Senate. It was the Maitama.
But maybe that's what he is saying, that the godfathers are the ones pushing the candidates into.
I don't know if I call them they are power brokers in an like yes, godfathers, but they don't go for all the rich men that came out, or even before him, all the men that spend a lot of money, they never get the position, and we still wonder why. Peter became, you see, he manages himself differently. You wouldn't even know he's a man of means.
So are we saying that Andy Uba, who has said that the language that they understand, you know, in this very election, while campaigning, he said that he will speak in their language. He will speak in the language that they understand. And the language they understand is money. And he will speak their language. Are you saying that he will not, his money will not, and if I knew about too, you know, these are billionaires.
People who spent billions.
Or presumed billionaires.
Previously, they don't win. And we don't know why. But in fact, somebody told Soludo, let me just encapsulate it once, the mentality of the people in Anambra State. When Soludo first came from being CBN to run for governor, some people called him and told him, you're a professor. You've made so much money. And you want to add political power. Don't you think it's too much for one man? And people will take your money. That's my feeling. Like they seem to be invisible power brokers that will give you structure. I think APGA has a chance because it controls the town union. But the extent to which people are also disaffected by the governor will play a role.
Mr. William.
Is he performing? And the perception in the debate that maybe one person is arrogant or does not bring himself, people get put off. They may take your money.
You mean the perception that Soludo is arrogant?
I don't know, but I'm saying things may play out. We academics are not the best politicians around.
So thank you. But you academics are the best to analyze the difficulties or the danger in having religion side by side with politics. What do you say to that?
Religion itself is politics, you know. And people we could leverage on such primordial sentiments for whatever it's worth. You recall that former President Goodluck Jonathan, at the twilight of his campaign, when that election was postponed by 6 weeks, relocated to Southwest, went to redemption camp, was visiting the clerics and the traditional rulers for endorsement, and of course, a lot of money allegedly exchanged hands. But did that make him the president? Okay. The issue about vote buying, money plays its own role, but money is not the sole determinant of electoral victory.
Okay.
And I will not stick out my neck on who will win Anambra election on Saturday. Those invisible power brokers have the way they do things, 72 hours, 48 hours, 24 hours to election. They are meeting. They may not even meet in Anambra.
Don't have a role to play.
No, they are the chaperone of the citizens. They are the one that will tell their people, this is the person you should vote for. Okay. So these power brokers are assessing across board. It may be a dark horse. They may go for somebody in any Labour Party. They will say, oh, this guy is very calm. He's not arrogant.
Okay. Since both of you are avoiding to give answer about the religious
let me talk about religion at this thing. I forgot to mention that in political science, we say there are group dynamics in politics. Okay. It's a contest in which you try to mobilize groups. So even in the Western world, you talk about, say, America, you talk about black votes, white collar votes, the white votes, the Mexican votes. So in the same way, you first of all look at the various groups in your society. There are critical groups in where the churches over there. Not just in Anambra, you talk about also the Onitsha Amalgamated Traders Association. It's a very influential one. In Southwest, those motopark.
NURTW.
You can't ignore them. So in the same way, the Catholic Church and the Anglican Church, they are quite influential because you can say the Pentecostal they are making inroads now, but they're still the dominant denominations. And to the extent that they contest because you belong to different groups, we say group dynamics. So this man is a Christian.
But what's the implication for democracy?
Well,
and for good governance, for example.
It doesn't say anything. It's just that you have to, just like when you win, you have still to be conscious of the demographics. And those demographics will include those constituents. If you just want to say, look, we don't care, we want good government, we don't care whether we're looking for merit, you are assuming there are no demographics. And that's where you get it wrong.
And let me come in at the issue of, first let me cite the example of Father Reverend Mbaka, Ejike Mbaka. And the prediction about Buhari presidency in 2015.
Yes.
Despite the fact that majority of Nigerians do not believe that it's possible. Yes. But he stuck at his neck and he became an instant hero after that, to the extent that I think Aisha Buhari went visiting and acknowledging and appreciating that role. Now, look at issue around Mbadinuju. When Mbadinuju was running rogue and wasn't paid salary and all of that, the church called him to order and said, look, Mr. Governor, you can't be doing this to your people. Teachers have not been paid for 1 year. Civil servants are not paid.
In other words, there are positive rules.
So what they did, when they told him, he called their bluff and said they should mind their own business.
Called the other people dead woods.
So,
and people won't forgive you for that.
What did he call them?
He called the pensioners dead woods.
Dead woods. Okay. So did they not show him when it was time for re-election? When they intervened and tried to mediate, and you called their bluff and said they should limit their influence to their churches, they waited till when it was time for nomination in 2003. First, they made sure he didn't get the nomination of the PDP. And even when he got that of AD, it was just like a piece of paper. It has no value. That's to tell you, the emotive factor of religion, whether we like it or not, if there are two candidates equally good, both of them have very good pedigree, you look at what distinguishes both of them. And if you find it in religion, you may as well have found the factor that will give one the edge over the other. But it's not just religion, it's also about cultural affinity, it's also about class distinction, it's also about whether this person is controllable, whether we'll be able to talk to him. Because if you come with air of arrogance, and they know that this man will go rogue if he gets what he wanted.
So talking about arrogance, that takes us straight to the skirmish between Andy Uba and Charles Soludo, which resulted into deciding the election on the basis of who is educated and who is not education. To what extent do you think education of the candidates can play a role in this election? In Nigeria, that can be important. For example, in the 2015 and 2019 presidential elections. So
I'll put it this way: ask yourself, do debates influence electoral outcome anywhere?
okay.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure they do.
They're limited, yes.
And then it depends on who you are talking to. I mean, there are people who ask you, well, this man is not contesting to become a lecturer or to become a public speaker. But then, if there are other things people have against that person already, then that's a different issue. It depends again on spin. Because after every occurrence, whether debate, a very crucial factor is how the spin goes. So you can decide even that what people believe he was not able to articulate himself, the spin doctors, smart spin doctors might go to town and turn it into a positive thing.
But in your opinion, do you think if somebody doesn't have much education, do they have a business being governor in Anambra State?
I don't know about much education. The Constitution says you have secondary education to be governor. Now, if one person has raised question about whether you really completed secondary education, because one person said, I completed secondary education, senior secondary school certificates in 1974, when you know that SS2 or so, whatever it's called,
senior secondary school.
So it means that even if that person wins, there are grounds for litigation already.
Yes.
That's what you should know. So somebody has already fired a salvo, and we know those things can disqualify somebody. It is not whether your certificate, but that's, did you lie? After all, Barak Nzuwo in Kano, in those days, he didn't hide if I say, I'm a governor of the illiterate, I want to be for the, and for the illiterate. It doesn't matter. People will come around and say, well.
And Trump said, I love illiterates.
Yes.
I love the uneducated.
And then
George
George W. Bush said, look, I'm representing those who got third class.
Yes.
So it depends on how you carry yourself. If you come around and lie about what you don't have, then that becomes the issue.
Thank you. So as we roll down to the end of the program, there is, maybe we can look into the future a little, because we have just one election in the Southeast now, but IPOB is not restricted to Anambra State only.
Okay.
It is across all the 5 states of the Southeast to varying levels of popularity or entrenchment. So in the next 18 months or even less, probably 12 months, by this time in 2022, we'll be talking about the general election in which you will have Senate election, House of Representatives, presidential elections, and so on. So how do you see the federal government managing the security situation in the Southeast at that time, at the same time managing across the remaining 31 states in the country, plus the FCT, because the election will be the entire country. Now, for example, you have INEC. The federal government deployed 93 senior staffs, senior police officers, AIGs, DIGs, and so on and so forth. It will not have that many to deploy to one state at that time. So what do you think, how do you think the federal government is going to be managing that?
Well,
one each, maybe 1 minute each.
While I am not a spokesperson for federal government, I think this issue of electoral violence having a very significant spread, when it's a national election, everybody has their own talk, so there won't be enough supplies to go around. So there might not be as much threat of election violence across as you see if it's a concentrated election. But that's on the higher pedestal. Let me flag something as we wind now: the issue of sabotage in the electoral process. And I will warn that on Saturday, INEC, I pray, does not suffer sabotage, internal and external sabotage.
Okay.
It has happened. NURT members, both associations, people they rely on for logistics, even ad hoc staff who could be compromised not to show up, in order to discredit the election. All manner of interests can play out that will undermine, because the moment the election got up to a bad start, in which election does not start as at when it is supposed to start, people will start having their doubts. But coming back to the issue of you raised about 2023.
In 10 seconds.
In 2023, what will happen is, I think the federal government needs to start negotiation, serious negotiation and dialogue with separatist agitators.
Do you agree, Prof? Do you agree with that?
I'm not sure if I will use the word negotiate, but I'll say look at some of the underlying causes of those agitations. I also believe that these things will evolve. We don't know the direction, the trajectory, or the evolution. They will not remain static the way they are.
They will evolve in 2023.
They will be evolving. So we don't know the nature and the government's response. In the Southeast, there is this general perception of politics of spite, and which fuels it. And if the government, I think the Buhari government has made some moves, but in the beginning, some of the way it started was not good enough. I mean, was perceived to be not marginalization per se, but spiteful. And young people, like that, they reason differently. So they decided, well, if you spite me, I'll spite you to hell. So something like that. So we have to look at the way of manner of engagement with government has to do. And I believe...
So government has to engage more with the people in the Southeast. Let me thank you once again.
I would say across the country.
And across the country. Yeah. So let me thank you once again for coming on the show, Mr. Jideo for Adibe Prof. And Mr. Jideo Ojo. Thank you, viewers, also for staying with us through the end of this program. Here is where we draw the curtain for today's program, and I hope you join us tomorrow. I am Suleiman Suleiman.